Australia has 10 professional basketball leagues, but if you're serious as a rookie or beginner, then you're really going to want to focus on only a few. One of them is called the DBA, the Darwin Basketball Association. And just recently, I messaged every single team in this league to see who's paying the most cash, who you shouldn't waste your time with, and who can help elevate your game in overseas basketball. Let's get started. First thing you're going to want to do is actually go to your desktop or computer. It's much easier to do it on this way versus on your cell phone. So what you're going to want to do is go into your browser and you're going to search Darwin Basketball Association. Then you can just click enter. And it should be this first link or this first pop-up that shows up. You can click on it, and in case it doesn't for whatever reason pop up, you can just look at right here at the URL at darwin.basketball. So that's going to be the website that you want to be on. Now, obviously the website may change by the time that you see it, but this is what it looks at currently at the time of this recording. So either way, in the Darwin Basketball Association, it is extremely easy to actually get in contact with teams, which is a refreshing breath of air when it comes to overseas basketball, because it can be very complicated sometimes and a lot of searching and a lot of researching. But all you want to do actually here is you just go to this at the top here, there's this Get Involved tab, and then you're just going to scroll down and click on DBA Club Contacts. And it's really just that simple. Now you have access to every single current team in the Darwin Basketball Association, which is amazing news. Now, the only way that I actually found this was I messaged and I actually phone called, because I was living in Australia at the time. I called the Federation for Darwin and I asked them, how can I get in contact with clubs? And they actually pointed me to here. So if you went on the website, I don't think, it may seem simple right now, but I don't think that a lot of people would actually think to look at this tab right here, Get Involved. But either way, it's here, and that's for the benefit of me and you as players. Now, when you click on this tab, what you're gonna see is you have emails, you have websites, you have social media accounts, and you also have phone numbers. So all of these are gonna give a different type of advantage for you as a player, depending on your situation and depending on what resources you actually have at your disposal. So let's kind of go through each and how you can benefit from it. So the first one is the email. The email is pretty simple. You're just gonna click on it, and then obviously it's gonna take you to the email, and then you just put in your information. This is more or less what I teach other players to say to teams that they are interested in, with of course some tweaking and revamping depending on your situation, because everyone has different contexts in their career. Some people have things that they're gonna wanna highlight more, like having a specific passport in a certain region, and some people are gonna have different things that they're gonna wanna highlight. So as you can see in my email, I actually say that I'm in Sydney, so I'm incentivizing these teams a lot to actually take a risk and look at me, because they know that, oh, we don't have to pay for this guy's flights if he's coming from the States or Canada or wherever, Europe. That's going to be much more expensive, especially in the city and in a country such as Australia, where the flights are crazy. So that's a huge thing that I wanted to include and make them know that I'm actually in the area. And you can see that I included that right in the subject line of the email too. So these are some things some tricks that you can use to actually incentivize teams to take you more serious and to look at the emails, because we can't assume that these teams are even going to look at the emails to begin with, because it's very competitive and there's a lot of players who are applying for these positions. But either way, that's the email. Now, the next thing that we can look at here is the website. Some clubs are going to have the website. Some clubs are not. Some clubs are going to have the phone number. Some clubs are not. So you just have to go through and work with what you have, type of thing. Maybe I'm assuming if it's not included here, then you're probably not going to scrape it from the internet or find it any other way. But this is either way, this is a good baseline. But let's go through. So let's say this first club, Ansett Basketball Club. So the W stands for website, E stands for email, and the P obviously for phone number. And then the social media is just linked as such. But let's click on the website itself. So when you go here, originally what this looks like is just kind of like a dead link. Like you don't get much information from looking at it. It just essentially shows their location and the club logo, and there's not much to it. But if you go to something like contact, then you can find a bit more information. Granted, we already found this on the other page, but here's another trick that I found. If you go to committee, then you can actually find the president, the vice president, the treasurer, the secretary, public officer. So these are all people who then you can now put into social media, say like Facebook or Instagram or whatever platform. Usually it's Facebook, which is the most advantageous for older people that I found. You're gonna find them on these social media platforms, and then you can message them there directly. So that's another way. If you don't actually know who is the coach or who to contact or anything, or there's just a generic email, such as right here, if we go to contact again, see how it just says ansettbasketball@gmail.com? That's going to go probably to, I'm assuming, the secretary. That's probably who it's going to go to. But if you have the actual person directly, say the president here, like Paul Roos, you could find him on Facebook and try to message him directly. And it's just another way that you can try to attack this from all different angles. You don't want to assume, again, you don't want to assume that anyone is going to reply to you, that one way is enough. You want to attack this from multiple angles. And this was a way for me to just try to maximize my chances. It doesn't take much because there's only 7 teams in the Darwin Basketball Association. So it's a very small league. Now, let's say you go to the social media platform. So this is the Ansett Basketball Club's social media platform. Now for this, really you're gonna get the same information. Again, here's the Gmail, here's the website, and then you can just message them as well through this method. And you're more or less gonna include the same things that you included in your email. The big difference being usually in social media, people read these messages vertically, meaning they're on their phone. More often than not, they're gonna be on mobile. So that changes the entire structure of the message, meaning it's read vertically. But when you're in your email, not always, but usually my thinking is that, my inclination is that a lot of people are actually gonna be on their desktop at work reading their emails. So then you can kind of spread it out longer sentences, longer paragraphs. On social media, you really want to be short and concise and understand that this is kind of like a messaging app, an instant messaging app. So people are in that psychology when they actually are going to their social media. They're not expecting a massive paragraph. You've probably experienced this in your life when someone writes a massive, huge essay to you on social media and you just kind of scroll it, or you maybe even don't even look at it. You look at it and then you just close it, because it's just so overwhelming. Same idea here on social media. Okay, so we went through the email, we went through the website, we went through the social media. Now, some of these, as you'll see here, they also have a phone number. Now, unless you have an international plan, then you can't really actually message them or call them on their phone number. But I'll say this, with that being said, the most effective way I found, especially in this league, is phone them. That's when I got the most responses. I got live people on the line. They can actually hear my voice. They can hear my sincerity. They can hear me explain out my situation to them. Whereas in email and in social media, you really don't know where that message is going. So maybe you have a phone plan that has international call-in, a few free calls a month. If there is some way that you can actually work around that, man, that would be huge. That would be huge because it does yield some benefits. But of course, everyone's in different financial situations. I don't know if you can spare the extra, whatever it would be per month, $5, $10 for international call, but it is something to consider. That might be all well and good, but you may be wondering, what were the actual results? Now, in total in the Darwin Basketball Association, there are 7 teams. So out of those 7 teams, I got rejected 3 times, 2 didn't respond, 1 offered, and 1 essentially ghosted me. So that means 1 out of 7. So I got 1 contract offer out of 7 attempts, which is about a 14.28% success rate. And when you compare that to cold call in other overseas leagues, that's actually not bad at all. So essentially, another way you can think of this is if you message 100 teams, then 14 of them would respond. For a lot of times when you're actually cold calling teams, you'll probably get around 5%. 10 is probably a good percentage, but 14 is actually pretty high. You can take that however you want to take it though, because at the same time, everyone's different. You may be a better player than me. You may have a better resume than me, a lot of variables. So I can't just say that you're gonna get a successful response rate no matter what. It's really gonna vary depending on your situation, and it's really context dependent. Is this league even worth it? So that's something that we have to look at. Is this league even worth it to you or your experience level or to your resume? So let's go through that a bit. The Darwin Basketball Association is a very low budget league. Very low budget. Just to give you some idea of this, the team that offered me, they had 2 imports who were coming in. The only reason that they actually got back to me and offered me the Uni Rebels was because both of these imports essentially flaked. They were back in the States, they both got an offer somewhere else, and they never showed to Darwin. And that opened up an opportunity for me. When it came to discussing the budget and how much they could offer me and everything like that, they actually said that both of these imports were 1, paying for their flights, 2, paying for their visas, and 3, paying for their food. So essentially they were playing for free. And the only way that they could really gain any money, I guess, would be through the coaching academy of the Uni Rebels. So when it came for me to negotiate with them, that was more or less the same thing that they said that they could offer with me, was just, you can make money through the coaching academy, you can do individual sessions, you can potentially do seminars educating players, like what I'm doing right now. But really there was no real playing salary that they could offer me. Now they did offer me a house, so I would actually live with the owner / the coach of that organization. So we would live together in a house in Darwin. But it was far from glamorous and far from, I guess, an ideal situation, if you could call it that. And for me personally, this is why I actually didn't do it. Yes, this was an experiment, but if they could offer me a good contract, of course, I was going to take it. Why not? But at my age, 34, and with 7 years experience, it really was pointless for me to do it because it wouldn't advance my career in any way, really, and we'll get into that in a second. And at the same time, it wasn't providing me money. So you'll see this sometimes with older players. They may go play in like the Middle East or Asia, and previously they were playing in the top levels of Europe or the mid-tier levels of Europe. They understand that time is of essence now because they're in their mid-30s and they want to maximize money. They want to maximize their dollars. Really didn't check any boxes for me because it wouldn't propel my career, nor would it pay me well. So for those reasons, I just didn't accept it. Now, does that mean that this isn't worth pursuing? This league isn't worth pursuing? No. If I were a rookie, then this would definitely be a league that I could look at, but in specific circumstances. Because essentially this league provides an outlet for you to get into the Australian basketball market. And again, the Australian basketball market is not just Darwin. It has 10 different levels, 10 different divisions. And above Darwin, there's stuff like the Big V, which is in Victoria. There's stuff like the NBL 1, which is a great mid-tier league. So you have to kind of understand the limitations of the Darwin League in that sense. That if you wanted exposure, if you wanted highlights, if you wanted to move up specifically in Australia, then this would be a good option. But the downside of it is that this league is not actually certified or is not verified on Eurobasket or on any FIBA websites, essentially. So that means that it's kind of like lost. It's kind of like a ghost league. It's one of these ghost leagues where, yes, you played in it and you may even have got paid in it, but it doesn't really exist on the online overseas basketball database, which is, for all intents and purposes, it is Eurobasket. Because agents go there, coaches go there, players go there, media goes there. Everyone essentially is cross-checking your stats or cross-checking what you've done in your career on Eurobasket. So the Darwin Basketball Association doesn't actually even offer that aspect to you as a player. And that's a big downside because you could say that your stats are one thing or the other. If it's not verifiable, then it could be difficult for you to actually sell and make your case to your future jobs and another potential job. But that's why I say that if you played in the Darwin League and you wanted to specifically move up in Australia, then it could be a good option because everyone in Australia, I should say most of Australia, knows the level of the Darwin Basketball League. And they know that if you do well in Darwin, then there's a chance that you could also do well in another league called the Tasmanian League, which is a step up from Darwin. Or if you do well there, then potentially you could do well in Big V, 1, 2, or 3. They have multiple divisions in Big V. So there is a bit of, I guess, connectivity in that way, in that if you specifically wanted to move up in Australia, then you could go to Darwin and you could use it as a springboard to get into these other leagues. And then once you get into Big V and NBL 1, then those stats are actually on Eurobasket and then you're off and running. Then you can go present that to agents, present that to other teams, and that's going to be much more respected. The other piece of the puzzle here is that in Darwin, so in the Northern Territories, the state of the Northern Territories, that's where the Darwin Basketball League is held. There's actually a team there for the NBL 1, and this is the second division in Australia, as mentioned. And what happens is some of these guys, some of these players from Darwin, they actually don't get much burn or much playing time in the NBL 1. So what they do is in their off seasons, because this runs opposite of the NBL 1, in their off seasons, they go play in Darwin and they're able to get more reps, more exposure, more stats, and kind of build their confidence in that way. The positions for foreigners and imports are still going to be fierce, not because necessarily that it's highly coveted or it's highly desired, but because the locals are actually pretty good and they can more or less fill in those spots. If you have multiple good locals, then that can more or less account for the impact of a foreigner. Because there's young guys who are coming up in this league, there's NBL 1 guys who are playing in this league, there's retired NBL, so first division guys who are playing in this league, but they're much older and now they're just kind of playing for fun more or less. So all of this is coming together in the Darwin Basketball League. So there you go, there's a few of the pros and the cons if you are interested in playing in the Darwin Basketball League. Now, if that didn't sound appealing to you, then the good news is that there's, like, as I mentioned, there's 10 leagues in Australia. So you could look at the Warthol League, the Big V, the Tasmanian League, the NBL 1. All of these could benefit you in your career. So if you're interested in learning a bit more about those leagues and what they have to offer, then click this link right here. Otherwise, I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.